Imagine for a second that you are blindfolded, just totally in the dark. You are dropped right in the middle of the unforgiving wilderness, and the blindfold comes off, and a voice tells you that if you could just survive out here for 30 days, you will walk away with $250,000.
Right, which sounds like your standard, extreme survival challenge.
Exactly. But then, as your eyes adjust to the harsh light, you realize you aren't alone out there.
Yeah.
Standing right in front of you, staring back with this mixture of, shock and just sheer disdain, are all of your biggest past mistakes personified.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, 5 of your ex-girlfriends.
It's the ultimate manifestation of the phrase, your past catching up with you.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And in this scenario, it is not just some metaphorical catching up where you get an awkward text at 2 a.m. It is a literal, inescapable, physical reality.
Yeah.
And you cannot block them on your phone out there.
No.
You can't just walk away and go back to your apartment. You have to literally build a shelter with them.
You are stranded with 5 exes. And for the man at the center of today's deep dive, a guy named Grant, the nightmare is even more specific and, honestly, terrifying. Because standing among those 5 women is Ashley, a woman he had a long, serious relationship with until he cheated on her and publicly humiliated her on national television.
Which fundamentally changes the atmosphere of the entire scenario from the very first second that blindfold is removed. I mean, you take off that blindfold and the tension is already suffocating.
Right.
The psychological architecture of this situation is just so dense because you aren't just dealing with strangers figuring out how to, boil water. You are dealing with a deeply entrenched, shared history of betrayal.
It's an absolutely wild premise, and this is based on an extreme social and survival experiment orchestrated by the YouTube creator MrBeast. Now, you might be thinking, oh, it's just a YouTube challenge, who cares?
Sure.
But the way these women orchestrate their moves and the way Grant responds, it maps perfectly onto toxic corporate takeovers, high-stakes negotiations, and even broken family dynamics.
Oh, absolutely.
This isn't just a recap of a wilderness survival challenge. This is a case study in game theory, in psychological manipulation, in the illusion of control, and ultimately in the architecture of just a perfectly executed revenge story.
Yeah, if you look closely at the source material we've gathered, the strategic maneuvering in this scenario offers an unbelievable lesson. It is entirely about reading the room, or, well, in this case, the woods, and understanding the hidden incentives that really drive the people around you.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's jump right into the woods. Day 1. The blindfolds come off, the shock wears off, the reality sets in, and immediately there's a massive physical and psychological divide.
Instantly.
Grant goes off by himself to start building a fire. He isolates himself completely. Meanwhile, the 5 exes instantly form a coalition.
Right, they group up.
Yeah, they bond over their shared trauma, and they immediately start dissecting his character, specifically how he, quote, pretends to be perfect. Grant literally says to the cameras, now that I'm out here, I'm going to just pretend I'm out here alone.
Which is wild. Look at the immediate divergence in their survival strategies there. Grant instantly retreats into task-based survival.
Right.
He focuses entirely on the physical elements. Building a fire, constructing a shelter, gathering wood. He is entirely ignoring social survival.
Yeah.
The women, on the other hand, immediately weaponize their collective history. They recognize, almost instinctively, that in this environment, their social cohesion is their primary resource.
Yeah.
Grant is out there trying to conquer the elements, but he is completely blind to the fact that the real danger isn't the cold.
It's the people he's stranded with.
Exactly.
But why do we do that, though? I mean, if you are thrown into a high-stress environment with people who actively dislike you, why is the instinct to go chop wood instead of clearing the air?
Well, it really comes down to cognitive load and control. When human beings are faced with an overwhelming emotional or social threat, like, being surrounded by 5 people you've wronged, the brain often just cannot process the sheer volume of variables required to navigate that conflict.
That's too much data.
Way too much. Social repair is incredibly complex. It requires empathy, active listening, vulnerability, and, crucially, admitting fault.
Right.
Building a fire, however, is a linear equation. You gather kindling, you create a spark, you feed the flame. Grant chooses the physical task because it provides an immediate, tangible sense of control in an environment where he actually has 0 social control. He is using physical labor as a psychological shield.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's hiding behind the campfire. But to understand just how dangerous that delusion of control really is, we have to look at the mechanics of the game itself. MrBeast doesn't just leave them in the woods to see what happens, right? He introduces this massive asymmetry of information.
Yeah, the structure of the game is defined by these 2 hidden rules, and honestly, understanding this asymmetry is crucial to understanding everything that follows.
So MrBeast pulls Grant aside privately and tells him his secret power. Every 5 days, Grant gets to wield a hammer. He has the absolute power to eliminate one of the exes from the game. Whoever's left standing with him on day 30 splits the $250,000 with him.
So he feels very powerful.
Right. Grant thinks he's the king of the forest. But then, MrBeast gives the women their secret, and Grant is completely oblivious to it. The secret is that whoever makes it to the end alongside Grant has a choice. They don't have to split the money at all.
Right.
They can choose to steal the entire prize pool, sending Grant home with absolutely nothing. It's like a high-stakes game of chess, where neither player knows the other's win condition.
It's a textbook example of asymmetric information, which is a concept that fundamentally warps human behavior and decision-making.
Break that down for me. How does asymmetric information actually dictate the way people behave in a high-stakes scenario like this?
So the classic economic example of asymmetric information was developed in the 1970s by an economist named George Akerlof in a paper called The Market for Lemons.
Okay.
He used the used car market to explain it. In that market, the seller knows exactly what is wrong with the car. They know if it's a lemon.
Right, they know the transmission's about to fall out.
Exactly. The buyer, however, only sees the shiny exterior. Because the buyer lacks that crucial information about the car's true quality, they behave differently. They might overpay, or they might become overly suspicious and crash the market entirely.
Oh, I see.
In our survival scenario, the women are the sellers. They hold the vital information about the true nature of the game. Grant is the buyer. He is operating with an incredibly inflated sense of security based on incomplete data.
He assumes that because he controls the eliminations, he controls the outcome. He literally tells the cameras that he's, quote, guaranteed money.
Exactly. But power is an illusion if you don't understand the rules of the universe you're operating in. Grant thinks he is playing a straightforward survival and elimination game. He believes his only challenge is deciding who is the least annoying to keep around until the end so he can collect his half of the cash.
Right.
His ignorance of the women's secret becomes his greatest vulnerability. The women know they aren't playing a survival game at all. They know they are playing a heist.
Wow. They are playing a heist. But having a secret weapon is only useful if you know how to deploy it right.
Yep.
Which leads us directly into how the Exes constructed the most intense revenge plot imaginable. And to see how they construct this heist, we have to look at the very first elimination on day 5. This is where Grant's whole psychological profile just gets exposed to the group.
Yeah, the elimination of Amy is the turning point where the women realize exactly how to manipulate the buyer in our market for lemons scenario.
So day 5 rolls around. MrBeast brings out these physical glass hearts representing each woman. Grant has to physically smash one with a hammer to eliminate someone. The tension is palpable. And before he swings the hammer, MrBeast asks the women if they have anything to say. And Amy, one of the Exes, just casually drops a sarcastic comment.
Right.
She looks at Grant and says, "Being rewarded for being a cheater, isn't that nice?" And boom. Without missing a beat, Grant smashes her heart. He openly admits to the cameras that he was back and forth on who to eliminate, but that single comment was the deciding factor.
It is a remarkably revealing moment regarding Grant's internal operating system.
But I have to push back a little bit here, though. Let's look at this pragmatically for a second. They are in a harsh environment. It is freezing cold, they are sleeping in the dirt, they are eating meager rations. Isn't Grant just setting boundaries for his own peace of mind?
How do you mean?
Well, if I'm managing a high-stress project at work, and one team member is constantly making snarky, antagonistic comments that ruin the morale, I'm going to remove them from the project. Why keep someone around who is just going to antagonize you every single day when you have the explicit power to remove them?
That is precisely the narrative Grant uses to justify the elimination to himself. He frames it as a quality-of-life decision. But if you look deeper, it reveals a massive strategic failure rooted in cognitive dissonance and ego protection.
How so? Walk me through the mechanics of that.
Think about the concept of cognitive dissonance, first introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in the 1950s. Cognitive dissonance occurs when a person holds two contradictory beliefs, or when their behavior conflicts with their self-image. Grant views himself as the protagonist of his own story, a good guy, a capable leader, a fair judge. But Amy's comment being rewarded for being a cheater forces him to confront a reality that completely contradicts that self-image. It creates intense psychological discomfort.
Because it reminds him, and the audience watching, that he is actually the villain in this specific group dynamic.
Precisely. Now, in a game with $250,000 on the line, a purely strategic player would base their eliminations on a cold, calculative matrix.
Right, like who is the strongest?
Yeah, who is the biggest threat? Who is the smartest? Who might sabotage the camp? Or conversely, who is the best at foraging for food? Grant does none of this. He prioritizes his self-image above all else. He eliminates Amy simply because she bruised his ego in front of the cameras. The only way he can resolve the cognitive dissonance Amy caused is to literally smash the source of it. He cannot tolerate having his narrative challenged.
Oh, wow. And the other 4 women are standing right there watching this happen. They see instantly that logic and survival skills mean nothing. The only currency that matters to Grant is his ego.
They realize in that exact moment that Grant's pride is his Achilles heel. He isn't acting strategically, he's acting emotionally, driven by this overwhelming need to protect his self-concept. And in any negotiation or strategic game, once you identify your opponent's driving psychological vulnerability, you can engineer an environment that weaponizes it against them.
Which leads directly to the birth of what the women literally dub project manipulation. The core 4 remaining women, Ashley, Julie, Alyssa, and Abby, huddle up in the woods and formulate a unified strategy. And this strategy is diabolical.
It really is.
The plan is to manipulate Grant into taking Ashley, the woman he hurt the most, to the very end. They want him to choose her so she can enact the ultimate revenge and steal all the money from under his nose.
It is a brilliant, immediate pivot from outright hostility to subversive pacification.
Ashley actually turns to the cameras and says, "Now is my time to shine," as an actress. She literally fake cries so the other girls can laugh about it, and then she goes out into the camp to have this deeply vulnerable, entirely fabricated, reconciliatory conversation with Grant.
Right.
She plays the wounded bird to make him feel bad for her,
Right.
but also to make him feel like he's the one fixing her.
They recognize that Amy's approach, direct confrontation is a fast track to elimination, so they switch tactics. They feed his ego. They play directly into his desire to be seen as the benevolent forgiver, the magnanimous leader who can heal the wounds he caused simply by keeping her around.
It's crazy.
It is a highly sophisticated form of emotional judo. You use your opponent's momentum, in this case, Grant's desperate need to feel like a good person to throw them off balance.
But maintaining that kind of emotional facade is exhausting, especially when the physical environment is actively degrading your willpower. I mean, it's freezing. They haven't showered in over a week. They're eating a handful of beans and rice.
Yeah, it takes a toll.
Alyssa, one of the core 4 architects of project manipulation, actually hits her breaking point. She just decides to bow out voluntarily. She walks up to Grant and says, "I'm leaving tonight. It's too cold and dirty." And you can see this wave of panic wash over Grant. He suddenly realizes that morale is plummeting.
Because if they all leave, the games is over.
Exactly. The game requires people to stay. If everyone quits, there is no day 30 and there is no money. So to stop the bleeding, he pivots to what he actually calls the princess treatment.
The princess treatment. This is a fascinating behavioral response to a loss of control.
He goes into overdrive. He starts making them coffee in the morning. He cleans all the dirty, soot-covered pots himself. He even spends an entire day chopping wood and lashing ropes together to build a literal functioning swing set for them in the middle of the woods.
Swings.
It is the funniest, most absurd visual. These women are huddled together, actively plotting to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from him. And he is 50 feet away, sweating, building them a wooden swing set.
It's humorous, but it also perfectly illustrates a systemic flaw in how people in power attempt to fix fractured relationships or toxic environments. Grant senses that the social dynamic is fraying, people are miserable, one person has already quit. His response to the structural crisis is to offer superficial perks.
Right.
He provides coffee, clean pots, a makeshift playground, but he is completely ignoring the deeper structural resentment that is actually driving the misery.
It's the classic ping pong table in the break room maneuver.
That is the exact corporate equivalent.
Yeah.
Think about a struggling company where the employees are deeply resentful because of stagnant wages, toxic middle management, or a complete lack of work-life balance. Turnover is skyrocketing. The executive team, rather than doing the hard work of restructuring the management tree or adjusting the compensation model, decides to buy a ping pong table and offer free cold brew on Fridays. They're attempting to buy loyalty and happiness with superficial amenities, completely missing the fundamental systemic issues causing the resentment.
Grant thinks he can literally build his way out of a broken relationship. He is framing houses and building swings, operating under the delusion that physical labor equates to emotional repair. But you can't build a wooden swing set to fix the fact that you humiliated someone on national television.
Yeah, I know, you can.
And we see the ultimate failure of this superficial perk strategy on day 10, when putting 2 people with deep, unhealed wounds into a luxury setting doesn't fix the damage, it actually amplifies it.
Yeah, the luxury cabin incident on day 10 is a masterclass in psychological triggers and the encoding of traumatic memory.
So day 10 arrives, and MrBeast offers Grant a massive choice. He can take one of the exes away from the dirt, away from the gold, to a luxury cabin. We're talking a professional masseuse, a hot shower, a hot tub, clean clothes, real food, all the bells and whistles.
And the women know exactly what to do here.
The other remaining girls instantly deploy their strategy. They actively encourage Grant to take Ashley, playing right into the hands of project manipulation. Grant chooses Ashley. He tells the cameras with complete sincerity that he thinks this luxury trip will mend their, quote, bad blood. He views this cabin as the ultimate ping pong table. He thinks this treat will erase the past.
He fundamentally misunderstands the depth and permanence of the emotional wound. He believes that a hot tub and a back massage can serve as a reset button for a profoundly humiliating public betrayal.
Yeah.
It demonstrates a staggering lack of emotional intelligence and empathy. He views her trauma as a temporary bad mood that can be cured with a spa day.
Here's where it gets really interesting. His lack of emotional intelligence is exposed in the most spectacularly cringeworthy way possible. They're in the cabin. The mood is actually seeming to lighten a bit. They're eating, they're warm. And then Grant mindlessly starts humming a song.
Oh, this part.
But it's not just a song he heard on the radio. During their relationship, Grant wrote a specific original song for Ashley. But then he ended up playing that exact same song for the girl he cheated on her with. And that is the song he starts humming while they are trying to bond in the luxury cabin.
The psychological blindness required to hum that specific tune in that specific environment with that specific person is almost difficult to comprehend.
It's like trying to defuse a psychological bomb, but accidentally using the bomb's absolute favorite song as your ringtone. It just instantly detonates. The luxury vanishes.
To understand why this happens, we have to look at how the brain encodes traumatic or highly emotionally charged memories.
Okay, lay it on me.
The hippocampus and the amygdala work together to stamp these memories into our brains, and they often attach them to sensory details, a specific smell, a visual cue, or very frequently, an auditory cue like a song. To Ashley, that specific melody is not just music. It is the auditory signature of her ultimate betrayal. The second she hears it, her nervous system doesn't just remember the cheating, it physiologically transports her back to the moment of humiliation. To Grant, however, the song is just a catchy tune that bubbles up from his subconscious when his dopamine levels rise because he's feeling relaxed in a hot tub.
The disparity between their internal experiences in that exact second is massive. You cannot pave over landmines with luxury. Ashley brings that sour, furious, traumatized energy right back to the dirt camp. The superficial bonding is entirely shattered.
And this abrupt shift in Ashley's demeanor creates an immediate strategic crisis for the women.
Exactly. The women see Ashley returning to camp absolutely fuming. And they know Grant's playbook. They saw what happened to Amy on day 5. They know Grant uses his hammer to eliminate people who make him uncomfortable or challenge his ego.
Right.
They realize with absolute certainty that Grant is going to eliminate Ashley at the next check-in because she is no longer playing the compliant, grateful victim. She is making his life difficult again. So they have to initiate an emergency decoy strategy.
Yes.
And this leads to what happens between days 11 and 15, which is honestly one of the most brilliant and intense displays of tactical loyalty I've ever seen in a scenario like this.
The martyrdom of Julie. It is a profound display of in-group solidarity overriding individual greed, and it relies on manipulating Grant's established behavioral pattern.
Julie and Abby realize they have to make Ashley look like the safest option for Grant to keep. To do that, they have to make themselves look incredibly dangerous. They intentionally start acting intensely hostile toward Grant. They are deliberately drawing his fire.
Drawing the aggro, essentially.
Yeah. Julie steps up as a primary antagonist. She confronts him directly. She calls him the most disgusting man. She looks at him and says, "I feel bad for your family." She is actively, purposefully pushing every single ego button she can find.
Let's break down the psychology of the strategic martyr. Julie knows the rules of the game. She knows that Grant's primary trigger is a challenge to his self-image.
Right.
She knows that by antagonizing him so aggressively, she is absolutely guaranteeing her own elimination on day 15. She is willingly sacrificing her own chance at a cut of the $250,000, her own spot in the experiment, to keep the ultimate goal alive.
Which begs the question, why? Why give up a life-changing amount of money for someone else's revenge?
Because the group dynamic has shifted from a collection of individuals trying to survive to an entrenched in-group fighting a common out-group enemy. In sociology, there is a well-documented phenomenon where the presence of a distinct common enemy massively increases the internal cohesion and self-sacrificing behavior of a group.
Okay, I can see that.
Julie no longer views winning as taking home cash for herself. She views winning as ensuring Grant's ultimate destruction. Her individual identity has merged with the group's mission. Think of corporate whistleblowers who know that leaking internal documents will destroy their own careers, but they do it anyway to protect the public or punish a corrupt executive board. They embrace professional martyrdom for the broader mission.
And the decoy strategy works flawlessly. Grant falls for the misdirection completely. He tells the cameras that his life isn't easy with any of them, but Julie has really surprised him with her outright hostility. He is so focused on the immediate threat to his ego that he completely misses the broader strategic play.
He doesn't see it at all.
No. So on day 15, he smashes Julie's heart. He eliminates her. He's playing exactly the role they scripted for him, entirely oblivious to the fact that Julie's hostility was manufactured to protect his eventual downfall.
It is a stark testament to the power of a shared, cohesive narrative. The women are operating as a single unit with a defined mission. Grant is still operating as an isolated individual, trying to manage the symptoms of his environment rather than diagnosing the underlying disease.
Right.
He removes Julie, thinking he has solved the problem of camp hostility, entirely unaware that he just cleared the path for the ultimate heist.
With Julie gone, the game narrows down to just Grant, Ashley, and Abby, And this is where Grant issues an ultimatum that turns this from a survival challenge into full-blown psychological warfare.
The demand for absolution. This sequence, spanning days 16 through 19, represents the darkest psychological turn of the entire experiment.
Grant pulls Ashley aside. He tells her that if she wants to survive to the end, if she wants to stay in the game and get the money, she must look him in the eye and state definitively that they are, quote, equally imperfect. He wants her to verbally acknowledge that they share equal fault for their past. Equal fault for the failure of the relationship, equal fault for the cheating, equal fault for the public humiliation. He issues a direct threat. On day 20, if you can tell me with all seriousness that we are equally imperfect, I'll keep you.
We have to stop and deeply analyze what Grant is doing here, because this goes far beyond just playing a game. This is about power, coercion, and the rewriting of reality.
I have to ask you, as an expert in behavioral psychology, does Grant actually believe this? Does he genuinely sit in his tent at night and think, yes, my choice to cheat on national television is exactly morally equivalent to whatever minor flaws Ashley had in our relationship? Or is he knowingly, maliciously using his power over the elimination hammer to force her to rewrite history for the cameras?
It is almost certainly a complex, toxic mixture of both, functioning as a massive subconscious coping mechanism. We talked about cognitive dissonance earlier. Grant's brain simply cannot handle the sheer weight of being the unambiguous villain of the story. The internal stress of knowing he humiliated her, combined with the extreme external stress of the wilderness, starvation, and isolation, is too much for his ego to bear. So he seeks equilibrium. But because he cannot achieve equilibrium through actual repentance or changing the past, he leverages the one tangible weapon. He controls the path to the $250,000 to coerce his victim into absolving him.
He is holding her financial future hostage in exchange for a clean conscience.
Exactly. He is demanding a forced equilibrium. He isn't actually asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness requires acknowledging an imbalance of wrongdoing.
Right, someone has to be wrong.
Exactly. He is demanding complicity in his own alternate reality. He's saying, I will pay you to agree that I am not a bad person. It is a form of emotional extortion designed to sanitize his own memory of events.
And Ashley is agonizing over this ultimatum. She is caught in this brutal psychological vice. She literally says to the camera, I haven't decided if $125K is worth my integrity or not yet. She is wrestling with an impossible choice. Does she validate the delusions of the man who broke her heart? Does she betray her own truth just to stay in the game long enough to enact her revenge?
And this is where Abby's role in the camp dynamic becomes absolutely critical. Abby steps into the role of the pragmatic coach. She sees Ashley spiraling, caught up in the moral injustice of the demand. Abby pulls her aside and tells her, flat out, you're going to have to say some things you don't want to say.
Abby becomes the anchor to the long con. She reminds Ashley that the ultimate goal isn't winning a moral argument on day 18. The goal is taking all the money on day 30. So Ashley listens. She pushes her integrity down, she swallows her pride, and she walks over to Grant's tent. And she delivers a masterclass in deception.
She really does.
She fake apologizes. She sprinkles in intricate lies about how she doesn't resent him anymore. She tells him exactly what he needs to hear, carefully feeding his ego the exact narrative it is starving for.
I want to highlight the sheer amount of emotional labor required to execute this.
Actually, let's connect this to you, the listener, for a second, because this happens in everyday life, just without the cameras in the woods. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to actively validate a toxic person's completely warped worldview just to survive the environment?
It's so common.
Maybe it's a narcissistic boss who needs you to praise their terrible ideas so you don't get fired. Maybe it's a toxic family member at Thanksgiving and you just nod and agree that the sky is green because arguing that it's blue will ruin the entire holiday. You perform this exhausting theater of agreement because the cost of truth is too high.
The sociologist Arlie Hochschild coined the term emotional labor to describe exactly this. The process of managing your own feelings and expressions to fulfill the emotional requirements of a job or a power dynamic. Ashley is performing immense, draining emotional labor. She is subsuming her own deeply held truth, her own justifiable anger, to placate the ego of the person holding the power. To maintain a long con, whether it is Victor Lustig selling the Eiffel Tower or Ashley trying to steal $250,000, requires suppressing your authentic reactions for weeks on end. It is mentally exhausting, and it is a stark reminder of the lengths to which human beings will go when the hidden incentives are strong enough.
Ashley swallows her pride, and the tension seems to ease. Grant feels vindicated. He is back to building his shelter, Ashley is helping carry brush, and things seem peaceful. And just in time, too, because day 20 brings a twist that completely changes the emotional stakes at the camp.
The PUBG truce. This is a brilliant injection of external stimuli by MrBeast, and it radically alters the game theory matrix they've been operating within.
MrBeast suddenly arrives in the camp driving a four-wheeler, towing a giant PUBG mobile airdrop. Now, for anyone who doesn't play video games, PUBG is a massive battle royale survival game. You drop onto an island and fight to the last person standing. During the game, planes fly over and drop these massive crates airdrops filled with game-changing powerful gear.
Right.
MrBeast brings a real-life version of this to the woods. He tells them that if they can work together to shoot 3 targets with crossbows, they delay the next elimination by 5 days. Plus, they add $50,000 to the prize pool, making it a total of $300,000.
Yeah.
And they win a massive haul of real food, a welding mask, a frying pan, and, most importantly, letters from home.
Notice the profound shift in the mechanics of the experiment here. Up until day 20, the game has been a zero-sum adversarial matrix.
Meaning what, exactly?
A zero-sum game means one person's gain is exactly balanced by another person's loss. Grant winning meant someone getting eliminated. The women's revenge meant Grant losing everything. But the airdrop introduces a non-zero-sum mechanic.
Meaning they all stand to benefit if they cooperate.
Exactly. For the first time in 3 weeks, they have a shared, immediate goal that benefits all of them equally. They are forced into cooperative gameplay to secure resources that will drastically improve all of their lives.
And miraculously, they actually succeed. They work as a cohesive unit. Grant shoots, Ashley shoots, and then Abby steps up and hits a crucial, highly difficult shot with the crossbow. They erupt. They are cheering, they are jumping up and down, they are hugging each other. It is the very first moment of genuine, unmanufactured celebration we've seen in 20 days.
It's a huge shift.
But the real shift in the camp's psychology doesn't come from the extra 50 grand or the frying pan. It comes from the letters from home.
The emotional reset. This is where the foundation of the long con begins to crack.
They sit around the fire and open these letters. Abby reads a letter from her dad, expressing how incredibly proud he is of her resilience. She reads a letter from her 8-year-old nephew, Collins, who is apparently a huge MrBeast fan, telling her not to give up, telling her how cool she is. And you can physically see something shift behind Abby's eyes. It grounds them all violently back in reality.
What is fascinating here is how these letters shatter what psychologists call the camp bubble, or isolation fatigue.
The camp bubble?
Yeah, there are numerous studies on isolation, most famously aspects of the Stanford prison experiment or long-term deep space simulations that show how quickly the human mind adapts to an artificial environment. When you are in an isolated, high-stress environment for weeks, the micro-dramas of that specific location become your entire universe.
Right, the outside world just fades away.
Exactly. For 20 days, Ashley's revenge plot was the gravitational center of Abby's universe. The entire meaning of her existence in those woods was to be a supporting actress in Ashley's heist.
But the letter from her dad and her nephew pierces that simulation. It reminds her that the real world still exists.
Yes. The letters remind Abby that she exists outside of this forest. She has a family. She has an 8-year-old nephew who looks up to her, who is watching her every move. She remembers that she runs an animal rescue that desperately needs funding. She realizes she isn't just a pawn in someone else's vendetta.
She has her own agency. She has her own reasons to win $300,000.
Exactly. For 20 days, Abby has been playing Ashley's game. The letters wake her up to the fact that she has her own desires, her own moral compass, and her own why. This sudden injection of reality destabilizes the carefully constructed revenge plan. The solidarity that defined the women's alliance begins to fracture, not under pressure from Grant's hammer, but from the sudden, powerful realization of individual stakes.
This sudden injection of reality sets the stage for the final, most brutal 5 days of the experiment. The carefully constructed revenge plan begins to fracture from the inside out, leading to absolute chaos.
The collapse of project manipulation and the descent into paranoia.
We hit days 23 through 25, and things unravel with terrifying speed. Ashley, perhaps emboldened by the massive influx of food from the airdrop, or perhaps just completely mentally exhausted by the emotional labor of the con, stops playing nice.
She's done.
Yeah, she refuses to give Grant the exact, equally imperfect phrasing he is still demanding. She starts pushing back. Grant immediately senses the shift in her energy, and he gets intensely paranoid. He knows something is wrong. He starts threatening to literally pack up his tent, take off his mic, and leave the game entirely if he senses the girl's going to use whatever their secret is to screw him over.
Wow.
And remember the rules. If Grant leaves before day 30, the game ends, and no one gets a single dime.
This is the ultimate form of brinkmanship. Brinkmanship is the practice of pushing a dangerous situation to the brink of disaster in order to achieve the most advantageous outcome. Grant realizes his psychological control over Ashley is slipping. He suspects he might not have the leverage he thought he had, so he threatens to flip the entire board over. He is saying, if I can't guarantee I win, I will make sure we all lose.
And Abby is sitting there watching this nuclear meltdown happening in slow motion. She realizes that Ashley's stubbornness, her refusal to just play the game a little longer, is putting the entire $300,000 prize pool at risk.
Right.
Abby says to the cameras, I feel like I was just a pawn. She realizes Ashley is willing to sabotage the entire financial future of everyone there just to punish Grant. So Abby makes a massive decision. She goes rogue.
Yeah.
To save the money, she privately pulls Grant aside into the woods. She looks him in the eye and promises him that her story is not about punishing him. She promises that she will not hurt him in the end, and that if he takes her to the finale, she will split the money with him.
Abby makes a highly pragmatic, deeply self-interested calculation. She recognizes that the original alliance, Project Manipulation, has transformed from an asset into a massive liability. Her primary objective has shifted from help Ashley get revenge to secure the funding for my life and my nephew.
But Grant is still incredibly paranoid. He has been out there for nearly a month. He knows the women have a secret. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows it has the power to destroy him. So a verbal promise from Abby isn't enough. He decides he needs an ironclad guarantee to secure her loyalty.
And this is where it gets crazy.
So crazy. How does he do it? He decides to use her deeply held Christian faith against her as a weapon. He pulls out a literal physical Bible. He brings it to Abby, makes her place her hand on it, and demands she swear to God that she won't steal the money from him. And Abby looks at him, places her hand on the book, and complies. She says, "I solemnly swear."
This is an astonishing, almost unbelievable escalation of psychological manipulation and coercion.
So what does this all mean? I mean, bringing a holy Bible into the elimination strategy of a reality game show to force a contract, it is shocking to watch.
If we connect this back to the broader themes of the experiment, it reveals the absolute bankruptcy of Grant's social capital.
Social capital.
Yes, social capital is the network of shared values, trust, and understanding that allows groups to function effectively. Grant has none. He thinks producing this Bible is his absolute masterstroke of strategy. He thinks he has checkmated her. But what this action actually proves is that Grant knows, deep in his core, that he has not earned a single ounce of her loyalty through his own actions, his character, or their shared interpersonal relationship.
Because he cannot rely on mutual trust, he has to import an entirely external framework.
Exactly. Because his interpersonal currency is completely worthless, he has to leverage an external moral authority religion to bind her. He is using the ultimate threat of divine eternal punishment to enforce a contract he was completely incapable of securing through basic human connection and mutual respect. It is the ultimate admission of interpersonal failure.
It's manipulative, it's desperate, and as we're about to see in the grand finale, it completely, spectacularly backfires. Because day 25 arrives, the final elimination. Grant stands in front of the two remaining glass hearts. He has to choose between smashing Ashley's heart or Abby's heart.
The final choice.
He has the hammer in his hand. And before he swings, he delivers this highly produced, wildly self-righteous, almost theatrical speech. He calls himself an unfaithful servant of God. He starts preaching to the women about life lessons, commanding them to love fiercely and forgive quickly. And then he turns his gaze to Ashley, says, "I hope you find God." And he violently smashes her heart. He eliminates the woman he cheated on, actively framing himself as the spiritual victor of the narrative.
The audacity of that final speech is breathtaking. It is the absolute zenith of the ego trap we discussed earlier. He has rewritten the reality of the situation so comprehensively that he is literally executing his victim while simultaneously lecturing her on grace and forgiveness. He's completely insulated inside his own delusion.
But the insulation doesn't last. Because immediately after Ashley's heart shatters, sending her home with nothing, the ultimate twist is finally revealed. MrBeast steps up to the podium, he looks at Grant, and he finally reveals the women's secret.
The moment of truth.
He explains the asymmetry of information that has defined the last 25 days. He tells Grant that the last remaining girl, Abby, now holds the ultimate power. She has the choice to split the money or steal the entire $300,000 for herself. And then, MrBeast takes the heavy wooden hammer out of Grant's hand, and he hands it directly to Abby.
The physical transfer of the hammer is the perfect visual representation of the ultimate power reversal. The executioner suddenly becomes the hostage.
And Abby, she does not hesitate for a fraction of a second. She stands there, holding the hammer. Grant is looking at her, his eyes wide, probably banking everything on that Bible oath he forced her to take just days prior.
Right, he's praying the oath holds.
And Abby looks right back at him. And she cites that exact Bible oath as the specific, undeniable reason she is doing what she's about to do. She looks him in the eye and calls his forced religious pledge a massive manipulation tactic. She says, "I'm going to put myself first." And with absolute devastating force, she finally smashes Grant's glass heart. She steals the full $300,000 for herself, for her animal rescue, and for her nephew Collins.
It is an incredibly brilliant, multi-layered, strategic, and moral maneuver by Abby.
But walk me through the psychological justification of that exact moment. How does a deeply religious person justify breaking a sworn oath on a Bible on national television?
Because of the nature of coercion. By forcing the Bible oath upon her under duress, Grant actually freed Abby from any moral obligation to him. He thought he was building an inescapable trap, but he actually handed her the ultimate moral justification for his own betrayal.
Wow, okay.
By utilizing her deepest faith as a weapon of coercion, he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was still the exact same manipulator he had been since day one. He wasn't acting as a partner seeking a fair split, he was acting as an emotional tyrant trying to shackle her. In her mind, and in most ethical frameworks, an oath extracted through pure manipulation and extortion is spiritually and morally invalid. He gave her the absolute moral high ground to crush him.
It's incredible. He meticulously manufactured his own demise. By trying to guarantee his victory with a manipulative oath, he sealed his absolute defeat. He goes home from the wilderness with absolute nothing. His final words as he walks away are literally, "I played, I lost."
He spent 30 days building a physical shelter in the woods, chopping wood and tying knots, but he completely, willfully ignored the emotional and social environment he was standing in.
And that really brings us to the massive, overarching takeaways from this deep dive. This is never just a YouTube survival challenge about who could eat the most beans or endure the coldest night. It was a profound, exhaustive exploration of how unchecked ego fundamentally blinds us to the realities of the people around us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Grant spent a month building a house of wood and tarp, but his social architecture was rotting from the foundation up because he refused to see the reality of his own actions.
He operated under the fatal delusion that because he controlled the eliminations, because he held the hammer, he controlled the reality of the game. He couldn't see that true power in any group dynamic, whether it's a corporate boardroom, a family negotiation, or a survival camp, lies in understanding the hidden incentives, the shared traumas, and the unspoken alliances of the people around you.
And for you, listening to this right now, the value here is massive and highly applicable. In your own life, in your own career, understanding the hidden motivations and the secrets of the people around you is the ultimate survival tool. Relying on forced compliance, whether it's a boss demanding you agree with a bad strategy, an ex demanding you say you are equally imperfect, or someone making you swear literal oaths of loyalty, it never ever breeds true loyalty.
Never.
It only breeds deep structural resentment that is just waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opening to strike back.
Which leaves us with a final lingering question to mull over as we wrap up. In the narrative of your own life, you are undoubtedly the main character. You are the protagonist. You are constantly busy building your own house, constructing your career, your relationships, your legacy. But you have to stop and ask yourself, are you so fiercely focused on your own construction, so obsessed with your own narrative of being the good guy, that you are completely oblivious to the secret rules that people around you are playing by?
Think back to that blindfold from the very beginning of the deep dive. Are you absolutely sure you've really taken yours off?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the woods. We'll catch you next time.